One of the careers that continues to need educated professionals is the paralegal field, and at MCC we offer a number of paralegal learning opportunities. Today on Metro and More, we're going to focus on a couple of new ones. There's a new immigration certificate program that may interest you, and the new legal secretary career certificate that we're offering. I'm Kent Pavelka, your host, and you'll learn all about it straight ahead on Metro and More. Greetings from the set of Metro and More at Metropolitan Community College, serving more than 50,000 students with over 120 programs at our 8 locations in the daytime, evening, weekends, or online. And welcome back. Andrew Sagarts is an attorney in law and business law and paralegal instructor here at MCC. And Joe Wandell is an attorney at law and director of the Legal Studies Department here at MCC. They're here to talk about those new opportunities in education at Metro in the paralegal program. It's a pleasure to have you back, Andrew, and Joe, welcome to Metro and More.
It's great to be here.
Just a little warm up. Andrew knows the drill. 30 seconds or whatever you need to kind of let our audience know about your background, professional, personal background a little bit.
Sure, I'll go first. So I moved to Omaha a couple of years ago from the Chicago area. In the Chicago area, I practiced law for about 15 years in the field of business law and immigration law. I moved to Omaha for Metro to accept a full-time position here. I had started teaching, found out I really loved it over 10 years. And so that's what brings me here. I love Omaha.
Do you miss practicing?
I do. They say practice makes perfect. And so some attorneys practice a long, long time, but I enjoy teaching even more than practicing.
Very good. Joe, what's your background? We chatted off air, so
we did. Yeah. So I grew up in Omaha also, and actually moved away for a while, came back as a single mom with 3 little kids, and decided my background was social work. I needed something else to pay the bills, so I went to law school. So long story short, I then started practicing law after the 3 years of law school, and did that for 25 years until a health event made me make a change. And the change then went to teaching, and I love it. I love it just as much as I loved practicing law. Both of them are really about helping people succeed.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it a lot.
And you've been here about 9 years, right?
I've been here about 9 years now.
Andrew says he enjoys teaching more.
You know, I liked them both. And maybe because I like practicing law so much and had that experience, I can use that experience in my classes to help
Very true.
help the students, you know, also practice and understand how the law works.
How many instructors are in the program?
Full-time, it's the 2 of us, and then Joe, how many part-time?
About 7 adjunct teachers.
Yeah.
And they're also lawyers, or one is a paralegal.
And all of this is paralegal work, studies?
My area includes both paralegal studies as well as business law. All of the business majors at Metro have to take business law. Gotcha. So I'm kind of their gatekeeper. We have a general business law course that they take. So I'm the course coordinator of all of that business law that gets taught at Metro.
But
and all the legal studies students also take business law, so he gets to see both of them. Yeah.
So legal studies is not just being a paralegal?
It's not. Legal studies encompasses pre-law, associate's degree. It encompasses the paralegal associate's degree, the paralegal accelerated certificate, which is for those people who already have bachelor's or higher degrees. In fact, we have some students that have come who were attorneys in other countries.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so then they take the accelerated certificate for the paralegal. So we get all kinds of varied backgrounds, which makes the classes, of course, so interesting. It also then encompasses the immigration certificate and now the new legal secretary's certificate, as well as a legal administrative associate's degree. So there's lots of different options for students to look at.
What's the breakdown of people that are trying to eventually get to law school to become an attorney versus becoming a paralegal?
You know, I'm not sure that I can tell you exactly number-wise. I would say probably still 90% at least become paralegals.
Okay.
I concur with that.
Yeah.
So then some paralegals become attorneys later?
It's true, and we're working on, right now it's informal, but we're working on some mentorship programs for those people as well, to link them up with folks in the legal community as well as in the educational community, say at UNO and even UNL for law school.
And how long does it take you to get a certificate?
So to have an accelerated certificate in paralegal, it's about 60 hours. To get a certificate for a legal secretary, it's only 35.5 hours. But if you want to go on then and go to the paralegal program, all of those classes dovetail into the associate's degree.
2-year degree.
2-year degree, right.
Now, when Joe says 60 hours, that doesn't mean 60 hours of studying. That means 60 hours of credit.
Credit hours.
Credit
Credit
hours,
hours,
yes, just to
correct.
Which
clarify.
equates to how many quarters? 4
You
or 8?
could get it done in a year.
In a year.
In a year, if you went all year round. But because of the internships that they do, usually it's a little over a year. The associate's degree is likewise a little over 2 years normally.
A little over 2 years,
Right.
okay. Well, it's always good to frame our specific discussion around the program. But we want to talk about paralegal today, right? And I know that both of you have something you want to focus on, as I mentioned. Joe, you want to talk about the legal secretary career certificate, and Andrew, you want to talk about where are my notes here? The new immigration certificate program.
Correct.
Who wants to go first? I'd like to have you both chime in on both
sure.
subjects.
Sure.
The new immigration.
So this was a concept that has been around at Metro for several years, and then when I joined it, we moved the ball, forward down the field, and have started offering the first courses in it just this quarter. So it's a fully online program, and the need for it developed around immigration being a hot topic. Daily, we're seeing things in the news about it. And the idea is that this is not for attorneys necessarily, nor is it part of the paralegal program, so a student doesn't declare to be in the paralegal program. So really it's focused on non-attorneys who want to work with immigrants and support immigrants and their families and coming to the United States legally, staying here legally, or if they have to leave, to leave with dignity. So it's a 6-course series that the end result is a certificate in immigration law, policies, and procedures. The hope is that people who graduate with the certificate then go on to work with nonprofits. There's a special part of the immigration law, it's rare, but there's a special part of immigration law that says that non-attorneys can actually represent people in the law for completing forms and even going to court if they get a full accreditation. The person has to be accredited, which this program helps them to achieve that, and they also then have to work for a recognized organization, which is almost always a nonprofit that's been recognized by what's called the Board of Immigration Appeals, or commonly BIA. So the hope is that that's the first audience, folks that want to work in there. Also attorneys who want to develop knowledge base in immigration law. To be an attorney and take new cases, you have to develop a competency in that area. So we're hopeful that this might be another audience. And then finally, there's people who are simply interested in immigration law, or perhaps even law enforcement who want to know more about the laws that they're getting involved with immigrants, the laws that are behind all of that. So I hope that gives you a summary.
Great. That's a great rundown on what all is involved. You say nonprofits, they are the primary employers then for these folks. And what do you call yourself when you get their certificate? You're not an attorney.
An immigration advocate.
An immigration advocate, okay.
Would be a great, yeah.
And this is, the certificate is
The
called?
full long name is the Immigration Law Policies and Procedures Certificate Program.
Okay. All right.
So, lawyers, we have to have long things because we get paid by the word.
So what gave birth to wanting to do this here at Metro?
Well, and if you don't mind, I'll kind of take over
Feel free.
here. Back when I started working here, one of the things we do is check up on our interns. So at the end of their programs or close to the end, all the paralegal students have to do internships. And they have to do 2 internships, and it's usually done in a law office or a law setting. Well, one of the very first lawyers that I went to talk to about how my student was doing was telling me, I just wish that you offered a course on immigration law, because that's become so big here in Omaha. Now, back in the dark ages when I went to law school, they didn't even have a course on immigration law. And we did not have as diverse culture as we do now. But then I quickly saw that that has changed, and we do need to understand the principles behind immigration law, because not only does it impact you, the people who want to be, who are immigrants, but also in criminal law it has an effect, in family law it has an effect, and so you have to understand the basics of immigration law if you're going to be a good lawyer, period, to practice in any area. So I'm like, well, we need to really start an immigration course. So that was the first thing, and we integrated that into the paralegal program. But then I'm hearing from lawyers, you know, I need to know more about this too. Or I've had students that became BIA certified and loved it so much, and there was a need to have others also in that field, but they had to take courses online out of New York or somewhere. And it's like, well, we could fill that need here at Metro. Why not do that right here locally?
Really good
so
point.
that was really the developing ideas behind it, to help lawyers practicing, to help let them send their paralegals who needed to know more about immigration law, who are already working for them, or for other BIA accreditation purposes.
BIA again.
Board of Immigration Appeals.
Okay.
It just happens to be the name of the government agency as part of the Department of Justice that gives these accreditations and recognitions of the agencies. Piggybacking on what Joe said, so we did put a immigration law class that's in the paralegal program, but again, this is separate from the paralegal program, so someone need not declare themselves a paralegal major. And another thing that, just to pick up on, because this is an online class, and we expect that people from across the nation really can take it. A lot of our online students still come from the area, and already with the first courses that we're rolling out this quarter, we've had just amazing interest in it.
So you've become the New York example that you were talking about earlier.
Well, why not
Hopefully,
have
why
it
not?
here at Metro?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So this is how many credit hours again? 60?
That one is, it would be 6 courses, each of them 4.5.
Okay.
So we'll have to get some of our accounting
6
majors in.
courses.
27 hours.
That's right. And the final, sort of the capstone, the last course is an internship or service learning. So we're working with, we're working on getting connections built up with area agencies, companies, private attorneys, and that sort of thing, so that can be a very meaningful, give people practical experience in that area.
And it's all online except for that end
All of it's
exercise?
online, and that, I'm always interested in trying to do things in an innovative way, so even that may have some possibilities of also being somewhat virtual.
Very good. I'm interested in this nonprofit thing. You said to be certified, you have to work for for a nonprofit. Who in this area would be someone you'd work?
Sure. There are a few that are the names that come up quite a lot. Justice for Our Neighbors, or JFAWN, which is an area nonprofit that works heavily in the immigrant community, has several fine attorneys there, as well as already accredited representatives. So it's a recognized agency with the BIA. Others would be Lutheran Family Services, doing great work with the refugee community. And then finally, one of our students has recently joined Women's Center for Advancement as a third example. Now,
And Catholic Charities. In fact, my very first student to become BIA accredited was working as an intern at Catholic Charities. She hired on, and she was the one that was taking those New York classes.
so those are some of the more recognized area names in the nonprofit community that work with the immigrant.
So in the end, I would get my certificate, go to work for one of these agencies, and then, in essence, see clients.
If I could clarify just a bit, the training program does not, in
Get
and
you
of
ready to
itself,
take the test?
right? It gives you
Yeah.
part of the broad training and experience that's part of the accreditation. but that has to be done through application to the BIA.
Is that a test or?
It's not a test. They look at sort of the full person, what kind of training experience they've had. They also do character and fitness, just like an attorney would have. They look at our character and fitness before, they're allowing an individual to start working with another person on what their legal rights are.
And when you say fitness, you're talking about moral fitness, not
Moral
physical fitness.
fitness.
Exactly. We're not doing any stress tests.
Because immigrants probably are some of our most vulnerable people
Sure.
in the society.
Very,
and they
very
don't
true.
want anybody taking advantage
But
of
that's
Very
basically what would happen then once I got certified, is I would work for one of these agencies and then, in essence, see clients.
That's correct.
Right.
So it's also really important, because immigrants are so vulnerable, that we make sure that the people who are representing them really are, first of all, attorneys. So this doesn't make them able to necessarily represent, just by taking these courses, to represent an immigrant unless the Board of Appeals, of Immigration and Appeals, has allowed them to do that. So in the past, one of the biggest areas of investigation through the Bar Association, unauthorized practice of law, has been people trying to represent immigrants who don't have any knowledge on how to do it.
Right.
Take their money. In fact, there's a case where someone sold their house, gave somebody $60,000, and the guy still got deported, and the family's left here with no home.
So these are
Wow.
self-declared immigration consultants, or commonly in the community they're called notarios, the notary publics, which means a very different thing south of the border. A notary public is actually someone who's trained in the law and can do things. And unfortunately, there are unscrupulous individuals that take advantage of a vulnerable population in the immigrant community that may not understand these differences, speak the language, or understand the legal system here.
Let's segue over to the new legal secretary career certificate. What's that about?
Okay, so the new legal secretary career certificate is kind of a fast track to get into a law office and start working. Because besides paralegals, they also need people as secretaries. And a lot of times the paralegals even have a secretary themselves, where they're actually doing the typing or working up the product that they're drafting or researching or whatever. So when I'm going out and talking to these attorneys, I'm finding out, yes, they want paralegals, but they also a lot of times need a legal secretary besides, or both of them, to make their office complete, and to utilize what the paralegal can do best, and utilize what others could do for the paralegal or for the attorney. So that's why we really developed the legal secretary certificate. So after 35.5 hours, which includes an internship of 4 hours, they should be equipped to go and work in a law office, understanding the language, the processes, and having those technical skills that are so needed today.
35 and a half hours?
Credit hours.
Credit hours, yeah.
Credit hours.
So, I mean, would I need some secretary skills before I go into the...
Really, hopefully we will have taught them to, not me, but hopefully our info technology people would have taught them the secretarial skills they need to get started in a law office. And then if they
So
want
that's part of the 35 hours?
It is.
Those
That's
skills?
those skills. So they have some basic knowledge of legal terminology, legal processes, and the technical skills.
So has the industry, and by industry I mean the legal industry, by and large been without any training at the secretary level?
Well, they probably had secretaries.
Right.
With technology training, but they probably didn't have the legal training.
So what kinds of things are you talking about that they end up being equipped with?
Well, they would take introduction to law. So last night was my first introduction to law class, and I had my first person who was going to go through with the legal secretary's certificate. And so she's already working in a field that's kind of related. She already has some of the technology skills, but she doesn't have the legal terminology or processes that she would need to understand to do a good job in a legal office.
So by analogy, you can imagine somebody going to work in a medical office for the first time. It's a whole different sort of environment, way of thinking. The same is true with, exactly, same is true with law firms. So I think introducing people to the language and the technologies that are specifically used with lawyers, really helps them to hit the ground, not only running, but with running in advance of maybe some of the competing people for that position.
So this has been the province of the attorney to teach secretaries on the job, basically. up
Essentially,
until-
school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
Correct. So this would hopefully help in that regard.
And so these are things, all of the programs that we do are developed with extended input from the community. So the legal community, for example, the business community with business law, that I also direct at Metro. We tap into what is it that they want to
Sure.
see our graduates coming out with, and then we make sure that we're imbuing our students with that kind of training.
Well, and that's the beauty of Metropolitan Community College in every area of it, is that this symbiotic relationship with actual needs in the community
Yes.
for employment.
And that's
You
why
know.
we develop these programs, just to try to fill those needs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're very lucky. We have advisory boards for our paralegal, and that includes attorneys as well as paralegals from the Omaha area, from corporations to law firms, and they help tell us and inform us of what are the things we need. So that's what drives, for instance, right now we're developing a law office technology and electronic discovery course. So we've had a focus group of lawyers say we really need them to understand these management systems, case management systems. So we're developing that course. And it's because of the input we have from our community that we can then turn around and try to fill the needs. And that's really what we've been working on all along.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
Well, secretary eventually is going to probably be as equipped in some areas as a paralegal.
they just would not have had that research piece. So they may not know as much about drafting as a paralegal would, where you could tell a paralegal, I want you to draft me a complaint, I want these facts in, and then they can draft the whole thing. A legal secretary may not, at least at first, know how to do that. I'm not saying they couldn't learn it in time, because a lot of times they do, but they would not have learned how to do research unless they go back and take those classes, which they could. They always could add on and eventually also get the paralegal degree if they wanted to.
Very cool stuff. How unique are these two programs? I mean,
Well, I think that there are a few providers, as Joe was mentioning, maybe in New York, for example, that are offering online. That's one of the unique things, is the online aspect of the immigration law certificate program. But another, one of the other great things about Metro is that we're extremely affordable in terms of education and training. So I think those are unique things that may separate us from others that are involved in the same area.
Legal secretary is not new. Legal secretary is the only thing they used to have. And then eventually they went on to paralegals. Now we're kind of actually going back and finding out that they need legal secretaries as well as paralegals. So now we're going back to training also legal secretaries.
so legal
that's-
secretaries are not new, but the legal secretary certificate is.
It is, that's right. So legal secretaries, in fact, before there were paralegals, there was training for legal secretaries. Not only at Metro, but also in other locations around Omaha.
So that just kind of disappeared?
It really did, and then I kept hearing from attorneys, well, we need legal secretaries too. And our paralegals need legal secretaries.
Yeah.
So that's why we started going backwards and also picking that class up. So we did have legal administrative assistants as a new developed program as well. Probably about 9 years ago, that had just started right when I started with Metro. But unfortunately, we've only had 2 or 3 students go through that program during the time. And I looked at that and it's like, they have to take almost as many hours to get through that program.
As a paralegal?
As the paralegal, and they're not making near the starting salary. So maybe we need to look at this again. So that's really what drove that, if that makes any sense.
Sure, yeah. Except that what does an attorney do for a administrative assistant to get a qualified one then, if the education is not there?
Well, they still have that option. We still have that option open.
Oh, you
And they
do?
can still also go back and pick up those courses if they want to. And most of those courses are more probably technological courses. So those are always open for students to add on, always.
Talk about who these fields are. I mean, we've got people watching who might be interested. I mean, what kind of mentality,
I think
attributes are necessary to be in these and have these jobs and be successful?
I think the very first thing that people need to have, and so many do, is really the desire to help others. That's kind of the very standard thing. But then as they go through some of the programs, what are some of the things that we bring out in them? Maybe they already had it, or maybe we're training them for it, is attention to detail, working with other people. It's a very sensitive thing when a client comes to a law office or an immigrant comes to accredited rep at a nonprofit. They're vulnerable, they're sensitive, they're scared. And so having those people skills also to be able to sit with somebody, listen to them, listen to what the issues are, and then to try to help them to resolve that issue. It really takes compassion, and these are some of the things that I think we bring out in people.
Yeah, and I've kind of I'm right now really working diligently. I think, we already work very hard in developing reading skills and writing skills, and those are always important. And also critical thinking skills. But after 9 years, I've discovered that those students can be excellent in all that, but if they can't get along with their coworkers, they're not going to stay on the job. So I'm actively working on collaboration skills as well. So for instance, in my litigation class, they take a case from beginning to end. They draft the complaints, they do the discovery, they do the closing arguments, they do the jury instructions, they draft all that into a notebook, and then I make them do a trial. And they have to have two sides to the trial, and sometimes that's the most difficult part for them, is to be able to actually plan and work together with these other students that are a little different than they are. So using those collaborative skills and being able to work together, because in the law you're always going to work with somebody else. You're going to work with a client, you're going to work with an attorney, you're maybe working with a legal secretary or somebody else. And one of the things I heard on my interview process with our supervisors for the interns, one of the main things that was able to get that student that job is, and they got along with everybody so well. If you can get along with other people, you're more apt to get a job and keep a job.
And you probably are going to learn to get along with people once you appreciate the whole process, not only your contribution to it. And that's what I think you're talking about.
Correct.
Real quickly, time runs quick here. Do you want to talk about National Pro Bono Day? Anything about?
I do, and
yeah.
before I do that, I want to say very quickly also that there's a lot of changes coming in the paralegal field itself, and they're actually talking about some of those already in Nebraska. The American Bar Association a couple of years ago put out a resolution sent to every Supreme Court of every state suggesting that more duties could be performed by non-lawyers. So they've already started developing what they call triple LTs, limited liability licensed legal technicians. So they're able to actually do some representation of clients directly in limited areas. It's equivalent to a physician assistant. So in the past, a paralegal has been equivalent to a nurse to a doctor. Now we're actually got the equivalency of paralegals expanding and becoming the equivalent of a physician assistant with certain areas. There's also a few states that are allowing people who've been paralegals for attorneys for a certain amount of time to actually sit for the bar exam without going to law school.
Cool.
So a lot of it is changed, and that's how it used to be. You learned by on the job, right?
Yeah.
So now they still have so many hours that you've had to work there. Some of them say you have to have gone to an American Bar Association approved program, which we are here in Metro and have been for over 40 years. So that's a big key factor. So those are changes that are coming in the legal field because they want to make justice accessible to everybody.
We're clean out of time, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So we'll have
I
to
didn't
talk
get to
about
the-
some of these other things
well,
later.
on the Pro Bono Day I was going to talk about, because that's really what we're doing, is using our students to help other people have access to justice.
Very good. Joe, thank you. Andrew, thank you.
Pleasure, thank you.
And thank you for being with us again on Metro and More. Our goal is to better acquaint you with the mission, leadership, and the reach of the college. I'm Kent Pavelka for Metropolitan Community College. If you have comments or questions about the program, please email us at metrovision@mccneb.edu. Thanks for watching.
This has been a MetroVision production produced by Metropolitan Community College.